I'd been driving the I-10 corridor long enough that the desert stopped being scenery. It was just a job. Miles were miles. The Mojave, the Colorado, the stretch outside Blythe, where the land flattens out so completely it looks like someone ironed it. I'd done that run maybe 200 times for Schneider. Probably more. I stopped counting around year 4. That night felt different from the first hour out of Tucson. But I couldn't have told you why. Just a low-grade wrong feeling, like when you set your coffee down and it tips a little but doesn't fall. Nothing you'd call a problem. Just something you notice and file away. The sun dropped fast. It always does out there. 1 minute it's orange and heavy on the horizon, then it's gone and the sky goes this deep, bruised purple before it goes black. I had the Freightliner running smooth, the tanker sitting steady behind me. Pressurized industrial chemicals, westbound, nothing unusual. Holmes was in the berth, which was where Holmes usually was. Andrew Holmes was my relief driver and a decent enough guy, but he slept like he was training for a competition. I'd known him about 18 months. We didn't talk a lot. That worked for both of us. The radio was on, some country station out of Phoenix that I'd been half listening to for the past hour. I wasn't really paying attention to it. That's probably why I noticed when it went. Not static. Not between stations. Just gone. Complete silence. Then a flat hiss that wasn't quite white noise. I reached over and cycled through the dial. Nothing. Not a single station. Not even the fuzz you get when you're between signals. I tried the CB. Same thing. Just that thin, steady hiss. Like the radio was picking up the sound of empty space. I turned it off. The desert outside was quiet in a way that felt physical. I know that sounds like I'm reaching, but I'm not. There's normal quiet. No traffic, no wind, just road noise. And then there's the other kind. The kind where even the road noise sounds wrong, like it's coming from somewhere slightly off. Like the truck was moving through something thicker than air. I checked the mirrors. Nothing behind me for as far as the headlights reached back. No oncoming either. I'd been the only vehicle on this stretch for about 40 minutes, which wasn't crazy unusual for this time of night, but it added to the feeling. I checked the GPS. We were somewhere between Blythe and the California border, which matched the road. I glanced back at it 2 minutes later, and it had us sitting in the middle of the Colorado River. I tapped the screen. It recalculated and put us in the river again. I turned it off too. I was running on instinct and the white dashes on the asphalt. That was fine. I knew this route. The fog came out of nowhere. I don't mean it rolled in gradually. I mean 1 second the road was clear and the next I was driving into a wall of it, thick, dark, oily looking in the headlights. Not the pale gray stuff you get near water. This was almost brown. It smelled like something too, though I had the cab sealed. I couldn't actually smell it, but I had the distinct impression of a smell anyway. Something industrial. Something burnt. I dropped my speed immediately. Visibility went to maybe 8 or 10 feet. I could see the center line directly below and nothing else. I put the hazards on out of habit, though there was no one behind me to warn. Holmes groaned from the berth. "The hell is that?" he said. Not really a question. "Fog. Stay put." He groaned again and I heard him shift around. Then, my ears. "What?" "There's pressure, like altitude pressure." He sounded half awake and annoyed about it. "Both ears." I didn't say anything. My ears felt fine. I was focused on the road. I tapped the brakes to scrub a little more speed. The pedal went down soft and kept going. Not hard resistance, not normal. Just spongy and wrong, like pressing on a half-inflated basketball. I pumped it twice. Same thing. I had maybe 30% stopping power, if that. I stayed calm about it. Panicking in a loaded tanker at any speed is how you end up on the news. I took a breath and downshifted to bleed the speed off mechanically. The transmission screamed. I mean, it made a sound I'd never heard a transmission make in 20 years of driving. A high metallic shriek and then a grinding that I felt in my feet through the floorboard. and then it just locked, seized completely. The truck shuddered once, hard like it had run into something soft, and then it rolled. Silently. No engine, no road noise, nothing. Just the fog moving past the windshield and the hazard lights ticking. Holmes said something from the berth. I wasn't listening. The truck rolled for maybe 15 seconds and stopped on its own. I sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. The engine was dead. The hazards were still going. Outside was just the fog and the dark. Then the fog thinned a little in front of us. Not a lot, just enough. And I saw the lights, fluorescent, bright. The kind of white-blue light that a gas station puts out at night, that you can see from a mile away on a dark highway. It was maybe 50 feet ahead of us, right off the shoulder. A Love's travel stop. Full canopy, fuel pumps. The whole thing. Lit up like it had been there forever. I pulled out my phone and opened maps. No signal. I tried to remember if there was a Love's anywhere on this stretch. There wasn't. I knew there wasn't. The nearest fuel stop I could think of was back toward Blythe, and there was nothing like this out here. I'd driven this road 200 times. Holmes climbed out of the berth, rubbing one ear with his palm. He looked at the building through the windshield. "That wasn't there before," he said. "No," I said. We sat there for a second. The hazards ticked. I had no brakes and no transmission and no idea where we actually were. The GPS had us in a river. The radio was dead. The fog was sitting on the road behind us like a wall. I grabbed my Schneider cap off the dash and put it on. "Come on," I said. Holmes grabbed the tire iron before I even said anything. It was in the side compartment on the passenger step, and he had it in his hand by the time I came around the front of the truck. I didn't ask why. I was glad he had it. We walked toward the building together. The fog had stopped at the shoulder like something was keeping it back. The lot was dry and clean. No oil stains, no cigarette butts, none of the normal mess you'd expect outside a truck stop. The concrete looked poured yesterday. I've pulled into probably 1,000 Love's locations over the years, and they all have a certain look to them. Scuffed, lived in, a little tired. This one looked like a movie set of a Love's. Everything right. Nothing worn. The lights under the canopy were bright. Too bright, actually. The kind of fluorescent that's a little too high on the spectrum that makes everything look slightly wrong. My teeth started bothering me before we even got to the doors. Not pain exactly. More like the feeling you get near a transformer box, that low vibration you feel in your fillings. I pressed my tongue to my back molars and kept walking. The automatic doors opened when we stepped in front of them. That bothered me more than it probably should have. I think I was hoping they wouldn't. Inside smelled like a gas station. That mix of coffee and floor cleaner and hot dogs that have been on the roller too long. Normal enough. But the shelves were wrong immediately. I noticed it before I could even put it together. Every product was the same. White box, same size, same shape, stacked clean and tight all the way to the ceiling on both sides of every aisle. No logos, no color, just white. I walked to the nearest shelf and picked one up. It was light, almost nothing in it. The label was printed in small black type. A date, January 14th, 1883. That was it. No brand, no product name, no ingredient list. Just the date. I put it back. Holmes was already walking down the aisle, turning boxes over in his hands. "They're all like this," he said. "Everyone." I did a quick count. There were maybe 8 aisles, all of them stocked floor to ceiling with identical white boxes. Hundreds of them. Thousands, probably. I didn't know what was in them, and I didn't want to find out. The humming from the lights was getting worse. I could feel it in my jaw now, in the back of my skull. I've had sinus headaches that felt like less. I kept my mouth closed and breathed through my nose and tried to think about what we actually needed. The truck wasn't going anywhere. We needed a phone, a landline if they had one, or at minimum a person who could call one. There was a person. She was behind the counter at the far end of the store. Love's uniform, that orange and red color scheme, the little name tag. She was standing very still, hands flat on the counter, watching us. I clocked her skin first because it was the first thing that didn't make sense. The color of wet cardboard. Not sick, not pale, just wrong. Like the color had been replaced by something that wasn't quite the right substitute. Her face was arranged correctly, eyes, nose, mouth, but the skin was that color all the way up and I couldn't stop noticing it. Then she turned her head. Not all the way, just to the side, like she was listening to something. But it went too far, way too far. There was a joint in her neck that shouldn't have been there. Maybe two, and her head tilted until it was fully sideways. A full 90 degrees, ear pointing down at her shoulder. She held it there for a second. Then she straightened back up and looked at us again. Holmes had stopped walking. I kept moving toward the counter because I didn't know what else to do. I'm not sure that was the right call, but standing still felt worse. "We need to use a phone," I said. "Our truck broke down." She looked at me. Her eyes were fine, actually. Brown, normal. That almost made it worse. "Toll is paid in weight," she said. Her voice was flat and even, like she was reading it off something. I didn't know what that meant. I asked her to repeat it. "The toll is paid in weight." She looked at Holmes when she said it the second time. Not at his face, at his legs. Just dropped her gaze straight down to his legs and held it there. Holmes took a step back. I heard the tire iron shift in his grip. I turned around. I figured we were done here. We'd go back to the truck and figure something else out. Wait for another vehicle, flag someone down on the highway. That was the plan I had for about 2 seconds. The doors were gone. Not broken, not locked. Gone. Where the glass doors had been, there was a solid wall of red brick. Clean mortar, tight joints like it had been there since the building was built. I put my hand on it. It was real, cold and rough and completely solid. I stood there with my hand on the brick for a second. Holmes was right behind me. I could hear him breathing. "Okay," I said. That was all I had. I turned back to the store and started looking. There had to be another way out. There's always another way out of a commercial building. Fire codes, emergency exits, loading docks. I moved down the perimeter wall, checking between the shelves. Holmes followed without me asking him to. The woman behind the counter didn't move, didn't say anything else. She just watched us with those normal brown eyes and that wrong-colored face. The emergency exit sign at the side of the building was lit up red. I pushed the door. It opened onto a concrete stairwell going down. No alarm. The stairwell smelled like motor oil and something older underneath it. Something I didn't have a name for. The stairs went down one level and opened into a parking garage. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked. It was big. Way too big. The ceiling was low and the fluorescents were further apart down here, leaving long stretches of dark between pools of yellow light. I could see rows of concrete pillars going back and back and back, further than the footprint of the building above us could possibly account for. The far wall wasn't visible. I stood there and looked for it and couldn't find it. Not a car in the place. Not a single one. Just the pillars and the concrete and the dark. Behind me, Holmes said, "That doesn't fit." "No," I said. I looked back up the stairs. The stairwell door at the top was still open. I could see the white box shelves and the fluorescent light and the edge of the counter where the woman was standing. She hadn't moved. I thought about the brick wall where the doors used to be. I thought about Holmes's legs and the way she'd looked at them. I pulled my cap down and walked into the garage. Holmes was right behind me, tire iron in hand. The door at the top of the stairs swung shut on its own. I heard it close. I didn't hear it lock, but that didn't mean anything. I kept walking. The pillars went on for a while. I counted them as we walked. mostly to have something to do. Got to 31 and stopped counting. The numbers weren't helping. My boots on the concrete made a flat, dead sound, no echo. That bothered me more than the dark did. A space this big should have bounced sound around. It didn't. Every footstep just landed and disappeared, like the garage was absorbing it. Holmes walked close, not right on top of me, but close enough that I could hear him breathing. He had the tire iron down at his side, and he kept turning around every few steps to check behind us. I didn't tell him to stop. It was a reasonable thing to do. I was trying to work out the geometry of the place. The Love's footprint above us, best I could figure, was maybe 12,000 square feet. Standard for a highway travel stop. You'd get maybe 200 parking spaces in a garage that size, one level, if you were being generous. We'd been walking for what felt like 5 minutes, and I still couldn't see a far wall. Couldn't see sidewalls either, just pillars. I'm not great at estimating distance in the dark, but I know when something doesn't add up. It didn't add up. There was a smell down here too. Motor oil, but old. The kind that's been sitting in a pan for months, thick and dark. And under that, something else I couldn't name. Not rot exactly. More like the air in a machine shop at the end of a long day when everything's been running hot for hours. Holmes stopped walking. I stopped too. "There's something over there," he said. I looked where he was pointing. Between two pillars, maybe 40 feet off, there was a shape on the floor, low to the ground, not moving. I watched it for a second. It didn't do anything. I walked toward it. It was a person, or had been. He was sitting with his back against a pillar, knees pulled up to his chest, head down. His clothes were in bad shape. What was left of a work shirt, pants that had gone gray and were torn off below the knee. No shoes. His feet were bare on the concrete. He was shaking. Not a little. The kind of shaking that comes from being cold and scared for a long time. I crouched down. "Hey," I said. His head came up slow. He had close-cropped hair gone mostly gray, deep-set eyes, dark complexion. His cheeks were hollow. He looked at me like he wasn't sure I was real. "You're real," he said. His voice was wrecked. Hoarse and thin, like he'd been talking to himself for weeks and used it up. "Yeah," I said. "You got a name?" "Vernon," he said. "Vernon Chapman." He swallowed. "I'm a surveyor, San Bernardino County. I was..." He stopped. Started again. "I stopped for gas 3 weeks ago." I looked at Holmes. Holmes looked at me. 3 weeks. The man had been in this garage for 3 weeks. I didn't ask what he'd been eating. I didn't want to know, and it wouldn't have helped anything. "Can you walk?" I said. "Yes." He said it fast, like he'd been waiting for someone to ask. He got his feet under him, and I helped him up. He was light, way too light for his frame. He steadied himself against the pillar and took a breath. "There's no way out," he said. "I've looked. I need you to understand that before you think there's some obvious thing I missed. There isn't. The walls move, the layout changes. I've marked pillars and come back to find the marks on different pillars. It rearranges." "Why?" Holmes said. Chapman looked at him. "Because it's digesting," he said. "That's the only word I've got for it. The whole structure. It's a digestive system. The architecture responds to whoever's inside it. It reads what you're afraid of, and it rearranges itself around that. Makes itself worse. More of whatever gets to you." He paused. "I'm a surveyor. Spent 20 years mapping spaces. So it gave me a space that can't be mapped. That's what I got." I let that sit for a second. I'd been starting to think something like that, but hearing it said out loud made it more solid and worse at the same time. "The mechanics," Chapman said. His voice dropped. "I need to tell you about the mechanics." "Tell us while we walk," I said. I'd spotted something while we were talking. Back the direction we'd come, slightly off to the left, a large metal door set into a section of wall I hadn't noticed before. Freight elevator. The call panel next to it had one button, lit faint orange. Chapman nodded and we started moving. He walked okay. Slow, but okay. "They look like men," he said. "Work jumpsuits. The right shape, the right height. But their hands, they don't have hands. The tools are part of them. Fused in. Blowtorches, wrenches, other things. Where the wrists should be, it's just the tool." He was talking fast, like he'd rehearsed this and needed to get through it. "They come when the floor starts to change. That's the warning, if you want to call it that. When the concrete starts going soft underfoot, that means they're close." I was about to say something when I felt it, under my left boot. The concrete gave slightly. Not much, like stepping on packed wet sand instead of solid ground. I stopped. "Holmes," I said. "Yeah," he said. "I feel it." The elevator was maybe 30 feet away. I picked up the pace. Chapman kept up, which I was glad about. The floor was definitely softer. Not collapsing, not yet, but wrong. My boots were leaving faint impressions. That shouldn't happen on concrete. I kept my eyes on the elevator door. Holmes got there first. He jammed the flat end of the tire iron into the seam between the doors and leaned into it. The doors resisted. He shifted his grip and put his shoulder into it. Metal groaned. The gap widened maybe 2 inches. "Keep going," I said. I got my fingers into the gap and pulled while he pried. The doors were heavy and they didn't want to move, but they moved. We got them open about 2 feet. Wide enough. The shaft was dark below. A cable ran down the center. I couldn't see the bottom. Then something came up out of the dark. It rose slow, like it was in no hurry. Roughly the shape of a man in a gray jumpsuit. Its arms hung at its sides, and where the hands should have been, there was a torque wrench on the left and something I couldn't identify on the right. Both fused directly into the wrist. It rose until it was level with the floor, and then it stepped out of the shaft. Where the face should have been, there was a circular saw blade, spinning. Slow at first, then faster. The sound it made was a high, thin whine that hit somewhere behind my eyes. Chapman made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. The mechanic swung its left arm in a wide arc and the torque wrench caught Chapman across the chest. Not a hard swing. Almost lazy. No blood. That was the first thing I registered. The second was that the wound wasn't closing because there was nothing to close. Where the wrench had crossed him, Chapman's body was just going. Dissolving outward from the line of impact, turning black and liquid, spreading. Engine oil. That smell hit me all at once, thick and old. It spread across the concrete and kept spreading, and in maybe 4 seconds, Vernon Chapman was gone. Just a dark stain on the floor that the floor was already pulling into itself. I grabbed Holmes by the collar and we went through the elevator doors. I hit the wall of the shaft, found the interior panel, hit the only button on it. The doors ground shut behind us. The saw blade sound cut off. The elevator dropped. The walls of the shaft went past the gap in the doors slow enough that I could see them clearly. Rib cages, pressed flat into the concrete like rebar. Not laid against it, into it, flush with the surface. The bones, just part of the wall now. Structural. That was the thing that got me. They weren't decoration. They were holding the shaft together the way rebar holds a pour. Whatever this place was built from, it had decided bones worked fine as a load-bearing material. I counted maybe a dozen sets in the stretch of wall I could see before the elevator dropped too fast and the gap narrowed and I stopped looking. Holmes was breathing loud next to me. Not panicking. Just breathing the way you breathe when your body is doing the math and coming up short. Neither of us said anything. There wasn't much to say. The drop leveled out and the elevator slowed and stopped with a sound like a truck settling onto its frame. A mechanical shudder. Then the doors opened. The smell hit first. Meat. Not spoiled, which was almost worse. Fresh. The kind of smell you get standing too close to the counter at a grocery store. That cold iron smell that gets in the back of your throat. It was everywhere. The doors had opened into a Walmart. I mean, it looked like a Walmart. The layout was right. The ceiling height, the aisle spacing, the overhead lighting in those long flat panels. The signage was there. Produce, dairy, electronics. The font was right. The colors were right. But the shelves were loaded with raw meat, all of it. Every aisle I could see from where I was standing. Cuts I couldn't identify, some of them, wrapped in plastic on foam trays the way you'd find chicken thighs on a Tuesday. Others just loose, stacked, all of it moving. A slow pulse, like it was breathing. I could feel it through the floor. A deep rhythmic thud, maybe once every 2 seconds. Not a sound exactly. A vibration, like standing near a generator that's running just below the frequency you can hear. Holmes stepped out next to me and stood there for a second. "Okay," he said. That was it. Just okay. I didn't have anything better. I figured we moved or we didn't. I moved. Holmes followed. The pharmacy section was toward the back left. I knew that because Walmart puts it there. I've been in enough of them at 3 in the morning during long hauls to know the layout by feel. You want the pharmacy, you go left, you go back, you look for the drop ceiling and the little consultation window. This one had all of that. The drop ceiling. The window. A little sign that said pharmacy in that same Walmart font. The letters slightly too tall, the spacing slightly too wide. Close enough that you'd only notice if you were already looking for something wrong. We found her in the waiting area. 3 plastic chairs bolted together, the kind with the metal armrests. She was sitting in the middle one, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them. Dirty blonde hair, matted. A festival wristband on her left wrist, the paper kind that turns soft after a few days. She was wearing what had probably been a nice outfit once, some kind of light, flowy top, shorts, both wrecked. She looked up when she heard us. She didn't scream, didn't bolt, just looked at us with these wide hazel eyes that had already seen too much to react to one more thing. "You came from the elevator," she said, not a question. "Yeah," I said. She nodded like that confirmed something. "How many of you?" "2, there was a third." I didn't explain the rest. She seemed to understand anyway. She unfolded herself from the chair and stood up, and that's when I saw her right hand. She held it out, not to show me, just because she wasn't hiding it either. 3 fingers, thumb and pinky still there. The middle 3 gone, not recent. The skin had closed over, healed into these flat, smooth patches where the fingers used to attach. She'd had time to heal. She'd been here a while. "Sierra," she said. "August." I looked at her hand for maybe a second, then looked at her face instead. "How long?" "I don't know. The light doesn't change." She glanced at Holmes. "You should know the exits cost something." "She told us," Holmes said. "The woman at the counter back at the gas station." "Not exactly a woman," Sierra said. "Flat, moving on. The way out of this sector is the refund desk, back of the store. But it wants a piece of you to open. Biological." She held up her hand again, briefly. "That's what the last door cost. 3 fingers. I've been trying to figure out if I can afford the next one." I looked at her remaining hand. Thumb and 2 fingers left on the right, full hand on the left. "How many sectors did you come through?" I said. 3 before this one. This is 4. She said it the way you'd say you were on the 4th floor. Just a number. I didn't ask what the other 3 had cost. I figured I'd find out or I wouldn't. The glass case was near the pharmacy counter. Red frame, little hammer on a chain, the whole setup. The axe inside was a standard fire axe. Wood handle. The head painted red over bare metal. I used my elbow on the glass, reached in, took it. The alarm that should have gone off didn't. Of course it didn't. I handed it to Holmes for a second while I checked my pockets. The brass key was still there. I'd almost forgotten about it. Holmes had grabbed it off the mechanic's belt back in the garage right before we ran. I didn't know what had opened. I put it back. The intercom clicked on. I've heard a lot of sounds in a lot of trucks over a lot of years. I know what a high-speed collision sounds like when it's caught on dash cam audio. Metal hitting metal at highway speed has a specific quality to it. The initial impact, and then the secondary sounds, the crumple, the glass, the slide. This was that, on a loop, playing through the Walmart intercom at a volume that was just slightly too loud for the space, bouncing off the hard floors and the shelving units. No gap between the end of one loop and the start of the next. Just impact, crumple, glass, slide. Impact, crumple, glass, slide. Sierra didn't flinch. She'd heard it before. Holmes's jaw went tight. I took the axe back. Then the floor moved, not a shake, not a tremor. A slow, deliberate shift, like a conveyor belt engaging. The whole floor, all of it, pulling toward the meat aisles. Not fast. You could walk against it if you tried, but you'd have to try. And it wasn't stopping. The things came over the shelves about 30 seconds after that. Dog-shaped. Thin. The kind of thin where you can count the ribs from 10 feet away. They moved like dogs move, the shoulder mechanics, the way the head drops when they're coming toward something. But where the paws should have been, there were hands. Human hands. Adult-sized, the fingers spread for grip, the knuckles hitting the floor with a sound that didn't match the rest of what I was seeing. They poured over the shelving units from the meat aisles, knocking trays loose, and the meat that hit the floor kept pulsing. "Back wall," Sierra said, already moving. I grabbed Holmes by the arm, and we went. The floor was pulling us sideways, and we were moving forward, and the things were spreading out to flank, which I noticed and didn't have time to do anything about. Holmes was keeping up. We made it maybe 40 feet before he went down. His boot caught on something. I don't know what. A seam in the floor. Nothing. It didn't matter. And he went down hard on one knee, and the floor where his knee hit just held him. Not like he was stuck. Like the floor had decided he was part of it. He pulled and the tile pulled back, and I grabbed his arm with both hands, and I could feel it. The way the resistance wasn't coming from his weight, but from the floor itself, and the things were already on him. Those hands hitting the tile around him, and I was pulling and it wasn't working. Holmes looked up at me. He reached into his jacket pocket and came out with the brass key and put it in my hand and closed my fingers around it. "Go," he said, not loud. Just said it. I stood there for maybe 2 seconds, maybe less. Then I let go. Sierra was already at the end of the aisle. I ran. Sierra was already moving when I caught up to her. She'd found a door I hadn't seen, set into the back wall behind a display rack that had tipped over and spilled what used to be greeting cards across the floor. The cards were blank. All of them. I noticed that, and kept moving. The door opened into a corridor that smelled like a parking garage. That specific mix of exhaust and damp concrete that I know from 100 truck stops at 2 in the morning. Familiar enough to be wrong here. The ceiling was low and the lights were those long fluorescent tubes, a few of them flickering, most of them just humming at that same frequency that made the back of my jaw ache. We walked fast. Neither of us said anything. I was still holding the brass key. I don't know why I kept thinking about that. Holmes had pushed it into my hand like it meant something, and I'd been carrying it since the elevator, turning it over in my fingers without really noticing. It was a real key. Heavy, the kind with a bow that has a diamond-shaped hole in it, worn smooth on the edges. The kind that goes to a padlock or a storage unit or something completely ordinary. I didn't know what it opened. I figured I'd know when I saw it, or I wouldn't, and either way, I had it. The corridor ended at a set of double doors with a sign above them in that standard retail font, blue letters on white. Refund, desk, and customer service. The kind of sign you see at every Walmart in the country. I've been to a lot of Walmarts. I know what that sign looks like. This one had a small dark stain spreading from the bottom corner that I didn't look at directly. Sierra stopped in front of the doors and looked at me. "You ready?" she said. "No," I said. "Let's go anyway." She pushed the door open with her good hand. The room on the other side was big, bigger than the corridor suggested it should be. The ceiling went up maybe 30 feet, and the walls were lined with return bins, those big gray plastic bins on wheels, except they were all full of things I wasn't going to look at closely. The floor was clean, which was somehow worse. White linoleum, no marks, like it had just been mopped. The service desk was at the far end. Long counter, glass partition, the whole setup. Behind the glass was the woman from the gas station. Except she wasn't. Not exactly. Same wet cardboard skin. Same uniform. The Love's logo on the chest, except the fabric was stretched so tight it had split at the seams. She was enormous. Not tall. Wide. Bloated. The way a body looks when something has been added to it that wasn't supposed to be there. Her neck still had those extra joints, and her head was tilted at that same sideways angle, resting against her own shoulder like she was listening to something far away. Her hands were folded on the counter in front of her. They were the right size for the original woman, which made them look small and strange attached to this version of her. She didn't say anything when we walked in, just watched us cross the floor. There was a small placard on the counter. It read "Toll" in the same blue retail font. Under that, in smaller letters, "A part of the journey." Sierra stopped a few feet from the counter and looked at the placard, and then at the woman behind the glass. She lifted her left hand, the one with the missing fingers, and held it forward a little. Not quite an offer, more like she was already accepting something. I put my hand on her arm. "Wait," I said. She looked at me. I'd been thinking about this since the elevator, since before that maybe, since the aisle with the meat, since Chapman dissolving into oil on the garage floor, since the white boxes in the store with their 19th century dates. The whole time I'd been trying to work out what this place actually ran on. Because everything has a fuel. I've driven tankers long enough to know that. You want to understand a system, you figure out what it consumes. It wasn't people. Not exactly. Chapman was gone, Holmes was gone, and the structure hadn't stopped. It hadn't slowed down. It hadn't seemed satisfied. It kept going, kept rearranging, kept pushing us somewhere. That's not what something does when it's fed. That's what something does when it's still hungry, when it's still looking. It was looking for something specific, the boxes with the old dates, the way the garage had rearranged itself around fear, the way the whole building felt like it was oriented, like it had a direction, a pull, the same way a compass needle has a pull, not toward us, toward something we had, home. That was the word that kept coming up in my head, not safety, not comfort, specifically home. The building was a structure that had been cut off from something real and was trying to find its way back to it, or trying to eat its way back to it, or both. And we were the most real things in it, not our bodies, our memories. I'm not a philosophical guy. I'm really not. I drive trucks for a living. But I've been in enough bad situations to know that when something keeps circling the same thing, that thing is the point. The woman behind the glass tilted her head the other direction. Slow. The joints made no sound. I looked at the placard. A part of the journey. Not a part of the body. A part of the journey. I put the brass key on the counter. Left it there. Then I closed my eyes. Storm. I started with Storm. The smell of her. That specific combination of whatever shampoo she used and something underneath it that was just her, that I couldn't name and never tried to. The porch swing at the house in Phoenix, the way it creaked on the left side, no matter how many times I said I'd fix it, and never did. The sound of it. The specific sound of it on a Sunday morning when the neighborhood was quiet, and the light was coming in, flat and yellow through the mesquite tree in the front yard. The temperature of the air. The way the concrete step felt under my boots when I sat on the railing instead of the swing because the swing was hers and she'd claimed it years ago. And I didn't argue. I held all of it, pressed it, as hard and as specifically as I could manage. The smell of her shampoo, the creak of that swing, the mesquite tree. The pain started in my chest, not a pressure, a burning, concentrated in one spot directly over my heart, like something was being pressed into the skin from the inside. I didn't open my eyes. I kept the porch. I kept Storm on the swing with her feet tucked under her and a coffee mug in both hands, even though it was already 80 degrees outside. The burning got worse. I heard Sierra make a sound next to me. Something between a gasp and a held breath. The air changed. I could smell ozone, sharp and clean, and under it something like burning rubber. The specific smell of a tire that's been pushed too hard on hot asphalt. I know that smell. I've smelled it on the side of the highway at 3 in the morning waiting for roadside assistance. And it meant something had given out. Something had reached its limit. I heard the room tear. That's the only way I can put it. A sound like a seam splitting, like something under tension finally letting go. I opened my eyes. Behind the service desk, behind the glass, behind the bloated woman who was now perfectly still with her head tilted all the way back and her small hands flat on the counter, there was a rift, shimmering, the edges irregular, the light coming through it wrong and bright and completely different from every light source in this building. Hot light, real light. The burning in my chest was sickening. I didn't look down. I grabbed Sierra's arm. She was already moving. We came through fast. I hit the gravel on my hands and knees, and the impact was real in a way nothing inside that building had been. Sharp and immediate, the stones biting into my palms, the heat of the ground coming up through my jeans. Morning heat. Desert heat. The kind that's already working at 6 in the morning because it never really stopped from the day before. I stayed down for a second, just breathing. The air tasted like dust and exhaust and something faintly metallic, which is just what the I-10 corridor smells like out past Blythe. I know that smell. I've driven this stretch probably 200 times, and I know exactly what it smells like when the sun comes up over the Chuckwalla Mountains and the asphalt starts to tick and expand. It smelled like that. Exactly like that. Sierra hit the ground next to me and made a sound I'm not going to try to describe. She got up faster than I did. She was already standing by the time I got my feet under me, and she was looking at her hand, the one that was already missing 3 fingers from whatever she'd gone through before we found her. I didn't look at it directly. I looked at her face instead, which was doing the thing faces do when the body is processing something it doesn't have a category for. "Hey," I said. That was it. I didn't have anything else. She didn't answer right away. I straightened up and looked around. The sun was coming over the horizon, low and orange, throwing long, flat shadows across everything. The highway was empty in both directions. The Schneider tanker was sitting on the shoulder about 50 yards west, engine idling, hazard lights still going. The cab looked exactly the same as when I'd left it, like nothing had happened, like I'd just pulled over to check a tire. I turned around. Where the Love's travel stop had been, there was a lot, just a lot. Sun-bleached gravel and rusted scrap metal, old signage, a couple of busted concrete barriers, what looked like the frame of a canopy that had come down a long time ago. The kind of thing you see off the interstate and don't think about. The kind of thing that's been there so long it looks like it belongs. No building, no glass doors, no fluorescent lights humming at the wrong frequency. Nothing. I stood there looking at it for probably 30 seconds. I was looking for Holmes. I don't know what I expected to find. I'd watched him go down in the Walmart section, watched his skin fuse with the floor tiles, watched him press that brass key into my hand. I still had the key. I could feel it in my jacket pocket. But I looked anyway, because that's the thing you do. You look. There was nothing. Not a trace. Not his jacket. Not the tire iron he'd brought in from the truck. Nothing that said he'd ever been there at all. That part was hard. I'm not going to dress it up. Sierra sat down on the gravel, just folded down and sat there, knees up, staring at her hand in her lap. The missing fingers, the ones still there. She was quiet for a long moment. "It's not finished," she said. I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean it's not finished." She said it flat, not like a warning, not like she was scared, like she was just reporting a fact she'd already accepted. Places like that don't just let you leave. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I didn't, because I'd felt it at the refund desk. That burning in my chest, the searing pressure right over my sternum while the rift was opening. I'd ignored it because there wasn't time not to ignore it. But it hadn't stopped. It was still there. A low, steady heat under my shirt, like a sunburn that had gone too deep. I pulled my shirt open. The brand was about the size of my palm, right over my chest, slightly left of center. The Love's Travel Stop logo, the heart shape, the road bisecting it, burned into my skin, clean and precise, the edges sharp. It was red and raised the way a fresh burn is. And it was glowing, faintly, barely, but it was glowing that same sickly green that the lights inside the station had thrown when we first walked in. I stood there looking at it for a second. "Yeah," I said. Sierra looked over. She didn't react much. I think she'd seen enough that a glowing brand on a man's chest was somewhere in the middle of the list. I buttoned my shirt back up. The heat from it was constant, not getting worse, not getting better. Just there. I figured I'd deal with that later, or I wouldn't. Either way, the truck was running, and I had a load to deliver, and Holmes's logbook was still in the cab, and someone was going to need to know he was gone, and I had no idea what I was going to say about that. I hadn't worked that part out yet. "Can you ride?" I asked Sierra. She looked up at me. "Yeah." We walked to the truck. I helped her up into the passenger side, then went around and climbed into the cab. The seat felt the same. The dash looked the same. The CB was still on, still cycling static on the Schneider channel. Holmes's coffee cup was in the cup holder, still half full, stone cold by now. I left it there. I checked my mirrors before I pulled out. Force of habit. 18 years of it. Check your mirrors, check your blind spots. Know what's behind you before you move. She was standing in the center of the highway, the long-necked woman from the gas station, standing dead center in the eastbound lane, maybe 100 yards back. Her head was tilted at that angle, the 90-degree sideways tilt that her extra-jointed neck allowed. She was wearing the Love's uniform, the green and red, perfectly neat. She was waving. She was waving with Holmes's arm, severed clean at the shoulder, the sleeve of his flannel shirt still on it. She moved it back and forth in a slow, deliberate arc. Friendly, like she was seeing someone off at an airport. I watched her in the mirror for about 3 seconds. Then I put the truck in gear and pulled out onto the highway. I didn't look back again. The first exit sign came up about 4 miles west. Green, standard reflective highway lettering, the kind I've passed about 1,000,000 times. The brand on my chest pulsed. One beat like a heartbeat, then went back to its baseline heat. I kept driving. The next sign, same thing. One pulse, steady and precise, like something checking in. Sierra had her head back against the seat and her eyes closed. I didn't know if she was sleeping or just done. Either one made sense. I drove with both hands on the wheel and the sun coming up in my mirrors and the desert going flat and pale on both sides of the highway. The tanker was running fine. The transmission was fine. Everything mechanical was exactly as it should be. Whatever had seized and screamed and died on the way in had apparently resolved itself. The brand pulsed again when I passed a green sign for Desert Center. I'd worked out what it meant by then. Not all of it, but enough. The building had let me leave because I'd given it something it could use. Storm's perfume, the porch swing, the specific weight of home. It had taken that and mapped it. And then it had marked me so it could find its way back to that map whenever it needed to. I was a coordinate now, a fixed point it could locate. I got out. I didn't get free. I kept driving anyway because that's the job and because there was nothing else to do and because Sierra was in the passenger seat and the truck was running and Holmes's coffee was cold in the cup holder and the road went west. I know this route by heart. I've driven it in the dark, in dust storms, in rain that came down so hard I couldn't see the hood. I know every exit, every rest stop, every long empty stretch where the radio cuts out and there's nothing but the engine and the road noise and the dark. The brand pulsed one more time, slow and green. I kept my eyes on the highway and drove.